Hey everyone, so I appreciate everyone's thoughts and concerns over the past few weeks. I have left Ukraine for the moment from orders actually from the Australian government. Look, I don't have a strong opinion about the situation as I don't understand the politics and what thoughts are going on behind the closed doors and look, how would I know anyway? And I don't really know how anyone would know. So I'm happy to go on holiday. I'm here in Paris for a few weeks. Well, that was about the only flight I could get to get out of Ukraine. So anyway, Paris, I guess, it will have to be. I actually think there is a low chance something dramatic happens anyway with the Ukraine and Russia thing because, like the investing community, the media news can hype up a story until it is far bigger than it really is. But I also don't know the people who are making the decisions. So maybe there is a little tiny bit of risk being in Ukraine, but there is even less risk of war in France. So I don't mind going on a holiday, especially to keep my family from being so nervous. Anyway, hopefully I can get back into Ukraine in the next few weeks and all of it has hopefully blown over by then, but we will see. I'm not in a rush at the moment. Actually, with all the hype and hysteria around it, I'm hoping to get to rent a cheaper apartment soon back in Kiev. Well, we will see. Anyway, that's enough about the Ukraine situation. Let's get into the more interesting news and see what the super investors have been buying and selling in October, November, and December. So today I'm going to take a look at Mohnish Pabrai, Bill Ackmann, Warren Buffett at Berkshire Hathaway, Stephen Mandell, Pat Dorsey, Robert Vinall, Charlie Munger, Lee Lu, and Michael Burry. Okay, so let's look at Mohnish Pabrai first, and I'm in TIKR terminal, and I've been able to pull up Pabrai investment funds, the investments here on, you can see the names of them here on the left-hand side, and the filing type on the right-hand side, whether it's a 13F or a shareholder report or a Japanese 5% filing. TIKR is fantastic for this because it pulls international holdings, not just on Data Roma where you're going to only get the US listings. So we can see the Indian investments, the Turkish investments, the Japanese investments, things like that. So really the only thing here for Mohnish Pabrai that I find interesting is there is some selling and there's a significant selling of Shinnikin, which is a company that I've invested in myself. There's been a few ads, a bit of cash going into Micron and Rain Industries, but what looks like has happened is that he's sold some of this down to invest in, and definitely obviously the Alibaba stake, which he had back in Q3, that's moved now, by the sounds of it, into Naspers or Prosus. Bill Ackmann now hasn't reported in his filings about his large investment into Netflix, but we know he's come out, I think, on Twitter and talked about his Netflix position. Now, I personally can't get on board with the Netflix idea. I think they're just going to have to spend a lot of money to remain in front of the competition. It's not like these are capital expenditures like a cloud computing center where the costs are up front and then they pay it back over the years. See, content is always going to be this large expense, and I just can't imagine margins being significantly better. Well, competition is strong, and look, Bill Ackmann is far, far smarter than me, so I'm probably wrong here, but Netflix isn't for me. Now turning to Warren Buffett over at Berkshire Hathaway, there hasn't been much action going on here except for an interesting addition to Chevron Corp. So maybe Chevron's an interesting company to look at the moment. Maybe the price has become very attractive. Not really sure, but Chevron's been added to, and that's the only significant change in the top 10 here for Warren Buffett. Now I'm looking at Stephen Mandell's portfolio over at Lone Pine Capital, and there has been a pretty big jump in the shares that they've invested in Amazon. And MasterCard, they've added a very big position to as well. So maybe they've done that with a slight weakness in the Amazon MasterCard share price back in Q4. The price has actually got a lot cheaper since then. So it'd be interesting to see in the next quarter where the Lone Pine has added more to Amazon and MasterCard at the better prices. Now I'm looking at Pat Dorsey at Dorsey Asset Management, and I think there's two interesting plays here that they have done. The first one is Wix.com, a big addition to their holding in Wix. It's now their biggest position overall. Wix has actually gotten a lot cheaper as well in the past month or two. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in Q2 with Wix for Dorsey Asset Management. And a new company they've invested in called Poshmark Inc. And it's just a company I've never heard of. It's obviously a small company because they've just bought about 7% of all the shares outstanding. So there's something for me to do a bit of digging into because I like Pat Dorsey and their management style, and Poshmark is something I've never heard of, so that's something for me to go dig into. Now I've turned to RV Capital, which is Robert Vinall, and the interesting investments here are the two new additions into Carvana. Carvana, he did a write-up in his biannual newsletter as well. It's a really interesting read. I might have a video coming out about Carvana too once I've had a chance to look at it. And Trupanion, I don't know much about this company, and that may look like a new investment in Trupanion. So two new additions there, something for me to go have a look at as well. Now regarding Charlie Munger, well, this isn't exactly news, but the main story out of Daily Journal was that they doubled their position. This came out early in January. Now they're getting that average cost base into Alibaba a lot lower, and it makes me feel all warm and fuzzy about my stake in Alibaba, but that is just a bias that I have. I should have my own conviction rather than worry about what others are doing and thinking. If Charlie sells, well, will I sell? I have no idea at the moment. I probably will have to really try to figure out what I'm missing. I don't think he's going to sell anytime soon though, because that's not his style. Now taking a look at Himalaya Capital with Li Lu in charge here. So that's related to Charlie Munger because Charlie Munger has some of his family net worth with Himalaya Capital. And the big addition here is, well, it's a little bit of a sell down of BYD, but the addition of more meta platforms, so Facebook, a big chunk added there. So Li Lu has obviously been able to get a better price into Facebook, and the price is significantly worse now. Well, better for him if he's buying. So in Q2, in mid-May, we're going to see if he's been buying again in the quarter, and I think that's going to be really interesting. Now, the last person I'm looking at today is Michael Burry at Scion Asset Management. Michael Burry always has a lot of changes going on in his portfolios. So we've got the biggest stake now looking like it's Bristol Myers Squibb with the new addition there. Looks like Fidelity National Financial has been added to a big position taken out in that company. General Dynamics, AEA Bridges Impact Corp. No idea what some of these companies do. So there's some good, interesting ideas for those out there who are looking for some obscure companies and like Michael Burry's style. Some good options here for you. All right, so there you go. That's my highlights of the quarterly updates from some of the super investors that I like to follow. Hopefully there are some good ideas in there for you to dig into further. And Jans Werner, thanks for the kind words, and I appreciate your support a lot. You are a legend. Thanks for being here to the end, and I'll see you in the next video.